Fashion Weekly viewers, you will be surprised, and I am myself. Oh my God, we are sitting over here with David Dixon. Hi, David.
How are you? Thank you for coming.
Oh, it is our pleasure, and let's tell these guys what we're doing over here. This is a little sneak peek at the Fashion Week Spring 2014 collection, and David is so kind to let us be at his office and have a little look. Please tell us a little bit about this year's spring collection.
Well, for spring 2014, we're gearing up it's almost about 3 weeks to a month from now. Well, I think now we're going down to 3 weeks. Getting very excited about it, being part of Fashion Week once again. And it's a wonderful celebration of spring, not just spring 2014, but Fashion Week, World MasterCard Fashion Week period is an exciting week where our contemporaries all get together, show our vision, and mingle and sort of get to see each other twice a year.
So when did you discover this being your passion? Let the viewers know.
Well, basically, I was one of those kids. I'm the youngest of six from an Irish Catholic family, in terms of the first generation Canadian. We come from a construction family background. My brothers were in construction, my father was in construction. So this whole growing up around building things and making things. My mother was a stay-at-home mom, but at the same time she was very much into interior design. Like, she would constantly change things, take down walls, come home after school, it's like, where's the dining room wall? And she'd do it herself. Because so we grew up in a house that was quite active. So in terms of being inspired by things that are around us, it was constant change.
Wow.
So that's one of the reasons as why.
What do you think of trends nowadays?
Trends, I really don't particularly, I don't look at trends in terms of clothing per se. Mm-hmm. I look at trends that are happening culturally within our culture and society, globally, what people are doing, what people are thinking about. But I always had a fondness for sociology as well, and so that whole of understanding of community and cultural diversity. So in terms of, that's what inspires my trend development.
Wow, so I totally get that. The depth of this is very good.
It's more than just making clothes. I mean, wonderful. I have an aesthetic in terms of what I design, but I try to interpret how my customer, the woman who I'm designing for, how she's changing, what's exciting her beyond just her clothing, in terms of where she's going, what she's doing, who she's involved with.
But give me an idea, how important do you think internships and apprenticeships are nowadays? Because a lot of people, are getting back to this. I'm seeing the trend, or should I say it's coming back again, because it had disappeared in between.
I think internship is extremely important, and I say that simply because even whether it's paid or unpaid, just getting into that, because the whole idea of internships is learning really what the career choice is all about, and not only that, it sort of gives that person that relationship building. So when they go to post-secondary, or whether in university when they're finished, you've made some sort of groundwork in terms of introducing yourself to the community, where you can actually go back and say, knock knock, is there a position here available for me? And oftentimes when someone does intern, I've had several come through mine, where they've gone on to do their own business, or they worked for me at one point. They've gone through that process of internship, being hired, and then gone on to their own business.
Now let's understand, what does participating in Fashion Week for designers mean? So let's say somebody who started fresh, they're new, what do they expect from this? What can they get out of it?
Well, I can speak from my own history. The reason I did it, I started with the Toronto Fashion Incubator, New Labels. So I went into that formula of someone helping me step by step how to run on a show, so that these newer designers who are just going right into World MasterCard Fashion Week, they're doing it from the ground up, introducing yourself to the fashion community. There has to be some sort of continuous, though. My advice to people who are doing Fashion Week for the first time, prepare to do it at least 3 times. Or do something follow-up, because there's so many designers that they think if you do it once, you're going to be right out the gate, sitting at Holt Renfrew, or the room at the Bay. And,
welcome to this generation.
And it's not. It's a tremendous amount of work and a tremendous amount of tenacity you need, and gumption, and you have to have that within you. It does not happen overnight.
Give us a little bit of advice. So if you had to advise these designers, these up-and-coming fashionistas, what advice would you give them? Like something that nobody had ever said to you or explained to you or given you an idea of. What is something, or some things you would like to give these guys that you didn't have for advice? What would you tell them?
My advice for any up-and-coming designer who chooses to showcase in that way is do your research. It's one thing to have a vision and a point of view about what your clothes are about, but you have to understand, okay, what is the end result? Who's your customer going to be? What stores are you going to target in terms of selling your product? The ultimate thing is not just to be able to create beautiful clothing, it's to be able to see beautiful clothing on people.
Okay.
And in stores. So unless you're the lucky one who can sit in an ivory tower and just make clothes for the sake of making clothes, that's wonderful, but the reality is you want to live and eat. And so... and,
we all have to do that one.
You know, I mean, there are a few people out there that don't need to worry about that, but I mean, in the beginning, part of the process is that you're doing a lot of it on your own. Develop a thick skin and to be able to be... change your hats a lot of times in terms of, because you'll be pulled in different directions, and then I can't stress enough that it doesn't... It's a very, very, very small margin of people who make it like this overnight, or what appears to be an overnight sensation.
You had something to do with the Toronto Incubator.
Yes, my first season, I thought I didn't come from a fashion background. We came from a creative background, but not a fashion background, or me. And so I thought, well, you get a studio, you do a fashion show, and the buyers will come. It kind of happened, but what happened was I put on the show. I was part of the Toronto Fashion Incubator New Labels. I was one of the 7 designers. Thought putting my clothes on, waited for the phones to ring because my collection was drained, and nothing happened because I didn't contact any buyers. I didn't introduce myself correctly, and that's why my advice is to new designers is research. Try to create those relationships prior to the show. Introduce yourself the way that you would introduce yourself at any sort of function, saying, hello, this is who I am, whether it be a press release or a letter or an email, and intrigue them and sort of captivate them to come to the show, identify with you, and write about you. And then with buyers, it's the same thing. If you do coats, you're not going to go to a dress store and say, buy my coats. Mm-hmm. So it's doing all that sort of foundation work.
Wow. So I guess when you started, back in the day, I remember those times really well, but how do you think nowadays, do you think it's a bit more easier when it comes to communicating with all this social media and Twitter and Pinterest and Instagram, out there?
The social media has changed the landscape of fashion identification, period. Mm-hmm. The challenge of that being is that you have to make sure that you're sending out the right messaging. Making sure that that's where the whole idea of branding has come in. I mean, I grew up with, you made a collection, you sold it to stores, and you developed relationships with the people that, the whole idea of branding and making sure that the messaging that you're sending out is clear and concise is so important now, because people want to see continuity. They want to see that you're in it for the long run. Well, I mean, I grew up as a really shy person, and part of where I wouldn't speak, being the youngest, I didn't have to speak, so
everyone spoke for you.
Yeah, they basically spoke for me. And so the whole idea of, drawing and finding my own world and discovering that and being able to communicate through clothing became my voice. And in terms of, just being able to do that is a wonderful experience. And so for the new designers coming up, again, it's that messaging, making sure that you're prepared. I can't stress that enough. But also be prepared for quick change, because with the social media that we have nowadays, we're already seeing the collections on the line the next day or the day of, or we're watching them live now. So the whole idea of being up to be current and to be one step ahead is that much more important.
So give us a little bit of an idea. What would you describe it as?
Spring 2014. My initial, I usually start with an inspiration, and sometimes it's geared. There's 2 sources of ways that I develop, either through fabric or an idea or concept, because anyone can be inspired by anything. That's my vision.
Okay, so colors and textiles is what we're going to get into.
That's what that happens. That's one of those triggers that helps in terms of inspiration. For me, inspiration starts from an idea sometimes, and in this case, for me, it's fine. The collection's entitled Harmony. So I'm trying to find this balance, because over the past year or past few months, there's been such, with social media, you get to see things that are horrific in the world. I'm looking at stuff that our society is crumbling in terms of our cultural and our, just how people treat each other. And I thought, okay, how do I find that in terms of how am I going to communicate that through clothing?
What can you do to make it better or add in
because it's
positive
in
thing?
It's in my psyche.
That's very nice.
It's in my psyche, right? So it's on my head all the time. So, clothes are clothes are clothes. We're not saving babies by making them. Mm-hmm. But the whole idea is that, okay, how do I interpret what I'm feeling into the presentation of my collection?
Even 1% helps. You see, what I see is what you've said right now shows character, personality, principles and morals, and I'd love to hear that from people, and that's so nice of you to say. So harmony is one of the reasons, and I hope this reaches out to people and makes them realize loving each other doesn't matter color, race, or ethnicity, right? I don't want to be elected, neither. does David.
It's not about preaching and all that sort of thing, because as a first-generation Canadian, I fully understand. I grew up in that environment. I didn't see color lines. I did not see religious lines. I did not see. I grew up in the heart of Toronto. Like right now, we're in Mississauga now. But I mean, I grew up in that environment where I wasn't so isolated to one particular cultural group. And so for me, when people say, "Oh, David, you should so show such a diversity of ethnicity on the catwalk or the runway," and it's like, we're still looking at that. To me, that's sort of old news. And it's like, well, people are...
A's A, B's B.
I'm still wondering why that's even still an issue. And I thought we've gone past, we're 2013 going to 2014. This shouldn't be an issue anymore.
So, David, everybody has their favorite trends, and my parents look at something going on the runway, and they're like, "We used to wear this," and all those pants or jackets or certain textile design or something. So, which one of the trends are your favorite coming back, or what you hope should come back?
Well, I think fashion repeats itself in many forms, because we all seek inspiration from the past in order to make things more, take something from the past and make it more modern. One of the trends that I'm looking forward to is this whole idea of just being the return of elegance, the return of comfort, the return of put together. No more shock value, because we're seeing that so much in popular culture. I think there'll be a sort of a backlash to that. The Miley Cyrus is sticking her tongue and twerking. I think we're going to be seeing a backlash to this event in the next coming months of saying, what, enough is enough. Let's just be who we are, let's be comfortable, let's avoid the shock value, and just enjoy each other.
Well, guys, thank you so much, David, for giving us your time and showing us your baby over here. Fashion Week, Spring 2014 collection, Fashion Weekly, and your viewers, you got inside from David Dixon. Thank you so much for having us.
Well, thank you again, and thank you for watching.
Thank you.